Hello and welcome back to the Boat Shed. My name is John and this boat behind me is Antidote. Recently I decided to take a break from my 9-to-5 engineering career to follow an old dream, to fix up an old sailboat and go sailing around the world. Now it's going to take a lot of work to bring this boat back to its former glory. In today's video we're going to be fashioning, shaping and installing some new core material at the deck of the boat. Stick around for that. If you caught my last episode, then you'll recall that I had the pleasures of one of those great parts about being human. Making a mistake. That's right, I forgot a really important part of the process. I'll put a link up above in case you haven't seen that video and want to check it out, but needless to say, preparation is everything in this, and I missed a step, so had to redo it. So in the end, I had to pull this big piece of glass off, and as many of you have pointed out, it was probably the right choice, and even just for the peace of mind, but now we're going to hang it up here so I won't forget, hopefully in the future, to make that step. Well, now that we've corrected the mistake and paid tribute to the memory, let's go take a look at how that glass turned out. Okay, so now with the peel ply on here, this has really stabilized the surface quite a bit better. It's much more stable now. It still has some flex to it, which is good. So I think what I want to work on now is trying to get the filler pieces in underneath the bulwarks here. Let's use this crude model of the bow of the boat to show you what I mean. So this would be the current or existing balsa or plywood core that's now been removed, leaving us with this, the lower skin exposed and this taper ground into the side of the bulwarks. My plan now is to add 2 layers of core material in a stepped, staggered fashion, and my hope is that that will give me a nice clean line to install tape for the vacuum to bag new core material in this whole section. That's the plan. So to do that, I might start by pulling away the edge of the peel ply, not the whole thing. Maybe I'll pull it back to about here, so I can just abrade in there one more time, finish cleaning that up, and measuring some foam out. Yes, it looks like we're going to be going with foam for the core material on the Antidote project. Several weeks ago when I was preparing my last video for different core material options that you have, which you can take a look at up here, I made contact with Dean at Diab. Now, he's a project manager there, a very talented boat builder, and it turns out a fan of the project. And so when I asked him for a couple of small 6-inch samples, he said, let me do you one better, and he sent me this huge box of 2 whole panels of Divinycell H100. So I want to say thanks to the folks at Diab for making that possible. They've been a great resource for me, helping me select the proper material for the deck, and they've looked at some drawings and made sure that all the spans are correct, and also helped with some installation ideas. For all those reasons, and the ones in the video mentioned just a minute ago, that I decided to spend the extra money and go for the Divinycell H100. So a couple of days ago, a giant delivery truck showed up and dropped off a whole crate of H100 for this project, for the deck, and possibly a hard dodger, when and if we get around to that. And now let's get back to pulling up that peel ply. It's so satisfying peeling the peel ply back. It really is great. Pulling back the peel ply, I'm checking to make sure everything looks good, and you'll notice I do have a few dry lines that imprinted through the peel ply. These are because the 1708 can have little gaps between each bundle, and if you're keeping the resin lean like I am, you might see those come through, but as long as the glass is fully saturated, those little gaps will fill in on the next round, no problem. This looks good. This is looking good. And the reason I'm not just peeling all of the peel ply off right now is because I actually want to leave some of it on here, so when I'm walking on this, if I need to, then it's protected more. You know, I can always peel it off right before we go to put the next lamination on. Okay. I need to start taking a look in there. Before we get to gluing in those strips of foam, let me show you how I'm planning to lay out the deck. After another chat with Bob Perry, we decided it would be best to lay a panel of high strength down the center of the bow. This is going to provide me with the most options for where I mount the windlass, and it'll provide lots of strength. So for this, we're going to go with the Coosa. G10 would have been great, but the real estate's just too expensive. Now, since I don't have any cleats to worry about on the side decks, we're going to stick with the foam, and then I am going to graft in a panel of G10 underneath the staysail fitting, just to provide me with the ultimate strength and confidence when we're in heavy weather. So that's basically how I'm planning to lay out the bow of the boat. This foam cuts great on the table saw, and so I'm cutting down these strips to get the right width. And now my thickness actually needs to be just a little under 3/4 of an inch because there's just not enough clearance for 2 full-size pieces under the bulwarks. So we're planing it down about 1/16 here, and thankfully this stuff planes amazingly well too. Lastly, I'm just going to treat the edge here with a little bit of a sander, rounding it over and also putting just the slightest amount of a taper on it so that it'll slide under nicely. Let's see how it fits. With the embedded fiberglass, the Coosa is pretty rough on the tools, so I've changed out to a sacrificial blade to make these rough cuts. Just a few to get the general shape, and then we're back into the shed to start laying this out. Now, one of the things that's great about Coosa is that it's very stiff and strong, and that's why we're using it for this area of the bow. However, that means that it's not going to conform very nicely to the curve, even though it is a gentle curve. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a panel of Coosa like the one that we'll be putting on the deck of the boat, and now we want this to conform to the curve of the deck. And on Antidote, for a 5-foot width across the beam, there's about 1.25 inches of rise to be expected in the center of that portion. So it's around 1/4 inch per foot span. So this cylinder represents at the aft end of this panel how big of a circle that would be. But now, since this dimension actually changes as you move forward and backwards, you need to think about it as like you're trying to bend this panel around a cone. So the diameter is changing as it goes forward and backwards. So this represents the larger circle would be at the aft end of the panel, and the smaller circle is the forward end of the panel. So here we see the gap that you'd expect at the aft end of the panel, and there's the extra gap that we see at the forward end. So the shape of this panel needs to change. The curve of it changes from the back to the front. These lines are drawn on to account for the different radius of the 2 circles that this panel has to conform to at each end. And then I made the cuts a little more than halfway through so that I'd be able to curve the panel down onto the deck. Of course, nothing's straight on this. So we gotta fit a weird piece in here. Gotta say, this stuff's pretty nice to work with. It cuts pretty easily, but it's still very sturdy. And after a substantial amount of fidgeting, everything finally fit nicely, so we're ready to start putting these pieces in. Let's get started. We'll start with the starboard side first, and for whatever reason, the fiberglass on this side needs a little bit of encouragement to sit down nice and flat against the foam. So I've devised this medieval contraption, and the 2x6 overhangs the fiberglass nicely and allows me to use these spreader bar clamps to put a lot of pressure down on the fiberglass just to keep everything nice and flat. All right, so we've got all of this prepped and ready to go. And my strategy is going to be to start with the thin epoxy. I'll paint that on the surfaces that I know are going to be receiving contact. I'll do the same on the foam down below, which is sitting on a piece of plastic so I can transport it easily. The thin films won't cure as fast as the big globs, so I'll mix the thin stuff first, let it sit. It should be good for almost an hour probably in this heat. And then I'll mix up the thick glob, we'll squirt it in the back, and then before it has a chance to kick off, because it's going to have more mass, it will kick off faster. We'll shove all the foam in. Let's give it a shot. Okay. It's got everything on there. let's leave the work there for today. Come back next time and we'll be taking a look to see how all that turned out as we continue to put this boat back together. Now, if you've enjoyed today's video, I would love it so much if you would hit that like button for me. It really does help with the mighty algorithm, and I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Now, I have a few new patrons I'd like to thank. Michael and his wife Kate are in California, and they have a 1988 Vagabond 43 that they are doing a very big refit on, including some deck recore work, so I know exactly how you feel. Keep at it, guys. Viktor comes to us all the way from Norway, and he has a very interesting project there in his backyard that he is putting underneath a similar arch to this, and it is a custom-built fiberglass 1981 Colin Archer Bermuda rigged cutter. That's a mouthful. It's a very cool boat. He does a lot of really neat updates on Instagram. If you'd like to follow his project, we'll put a link to that in the description, possibly a banner right here, and you can check out his work and follow along. Thanks, Viktor. Also, new Patreons to the group are John and Marilee, my mother and father. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for supporting the project. You really don't need to do that, but I appreciate it very much. And so it's like after 30 years, I have an allowance again. Now, if you'd like to join the Patreon membership to get access to some real-time behind-the-scenes updates, we will put a link for you down below and possibly one up here. If you're new to the channel and you would like to get caught up from the very beginning and see the very first episode and onward, we will put a playlist up here for you. And if you are not yet a subscriber and would like to be, we would love that. And we're gonna roll out a button right now for you right there. So you can hit that, and thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Hey, if you're still seeing this, that means that I'm including these stickers with all new Patreon memberships. Let's do this.